that should be filed against the erring Philhealth officials, particularly the group of Secretary Francisco Duque III, Brigadier General Ricardo Morales, Mr. Renato Limsiaco Jr., Mr. Israel Pargas, and all other. Secretary Duque is liable for the unlawful and illegal release of IRM funds because in the board of directors.
An objection? Approved.
Add a new section under recommendations for DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III, and under which is this recommendation. To heed the call of the 14 senators who signed Senate Resolution number 362, recommending the resignation of the Secretary of Duque for his failure of leadership, DICT must clarify through appropriate issuances the process which agencies must follow in amending their previously approved Information System Strategic Plan, ISSP, in open and close parentheses. More particularly, it should allow, if possible and practicable, and subject to consultation with various stakeholders, the processing or review of amendments to an agency's previously approved ISSP even prior to the approval of their corporate operating budget, COB, in open and close parentheses. This way, board meetings and resolutions approving budgets for its equipment and for IT equipment, and services are guided by the ISSP prior to any budget approval and or release of budget for procurement. I accept, Mr. President, from Senator Villanueva.
An objection? Approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Congrats to Lakers.
Thank you, Thank you, Senator Villanueva. That keeps me going. From Senator Ping Lacson. He would have proposed it, but he's presiding, so I will read it. So include in the recommendations under section the number of cases violation of Article 217 of Act Number 3815, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code as amended, that should be filed against the erring Philhealth officials, particularly the group of Secretary Francisco Duque III, Brigadier General Ricardo Morales, Mr. Renato Limsiaco Jr., Mr. Israel Pargas, and all other Philhealth officials and employees who connived with and participated in the consummation of the punishable/illegal act, period. To be specific, comma, add in the third column of the table under penalties, at least, in open and close quotations, at least 631 counts of malversation of public funds or property. Number 1, the penalty of prisión correccional in its medium and maximum periods if the amount involved in the misappropriation or malversation does not exceed 40,000 pesos. Number 2, the penalty of prisión mayor in its minimum and medium periods if the amount involved is more than 40,000 pesos but does not exceed 1,200,000 pesos. Number 3, the penalty of prisión mayor in its maximum period de reclusión temporal and its minimum period if the amount involved is more than 1,200,000 pesos but does not exceed 2,400,000 pesos. Number 4, the penalty of reclusión temporal in its medium and maximum periods if the amount involved is more than 2,400,000 pesos but does not exceed 4,400,000 pesos. I accept, Mr. President.
An objection? Approved.
Again, to continue with the Lacson amendments, add under recommendation under DOJ Ombudsman to have a thorough review of the biddings and procurement contracts worth millions of pesos and look into the allegations relating to recurring winning bidders and possible collusion. I accept, Mr. President.
An objection? Approved.
To continue, add a new section under recommendations for DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III, and under which is this recommendation? To heed the call of the 14 senators who signed Senate Resolution number 362, recommending the resignation of the Secretary of Duque for his failure of leadership, negligence, lack of foresight, inefficiency in the performance of his mandate, resulting in poor planning, delayed response, lack of transparency, and misguided policies and in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, evidence of conflict of interest, and perceived tolerance in the massive corruption in Philhealth under the chairmanship, under his chairmanship, leaves him with no decent option but to resign. Period. The public has suffered enough and can no longer wait for the Secretary of Health's soul-searching endeavor.
An objection.
Mr. President, before I accept,
Sorry.
let me let me place on record, because I keep on hearing Secretary Duque in the media and the pronouncement saying that he does not have anything to do with it and he was not aware. Something to that effect. Mr. President, we find it really, as we look into the records, Secretary Duque is liable for the unlawful and illegal release of IRM funds because in the board of directors, in both the old law and the Republic Act number 7875, the National Health Insurance Act of 1995, under the board of directors, the composition of the corporation, if you will look at it, it says the corporation shall be governed by a board of directors. When we all know what we mean by govern. Ano? Now, hereinafter referred to as the board, composed of 11 members as follows. Number 1, the Secretary of Health, period. Number 2, the Secretary of Labor and Employment or his representative. Next, the Secretary of DILG or his representative. Secretary of DSWD or his representative. President of the corporations, President of Labor, etc., etc. Mr. President, it is very clear in the law. Siya lang, yung Secretary of Health, ang hindi pwedeng his representative or his representative. Siya talaga. So hindi pwedeng, di ba, na andun yung representative or something to that effect. So with that, Mr. President, I accept the amendment of Senator Lacson.
An objection. Approved.